watch me take my client from this to this using my infamous crochet method. So we're starting off with parting my client's hair and getting our section cut down so we'll know where we're going to be focusing on our braids. So once we cut that down, it was time to start the foundation for her crochet install. So I started it ahead, but I'm going to show you guys the method I use for these braids. So basically I'm doing cornrows along her hairline going towards the back, and we're going in a circular motion, so the partings are following the perimeter of her head, so it will give us the illusion of individual box braids. So you can see I'm doing each part around the same size, and my size of the parting is actually connected to the size of the braid that we're putting in her hair, or the lock. And I'm adding hairs just to give her some stability. So I'm using 3 strands of hair, technically 2, one flipped in half. And I'm using that to create security. It's up to you if you want to add hair for security, if you want to do a smaller piece, if you want to do 1 strand. I'm using 3. And if you look at my previous crochet videos, you'll see a slower video of how to add this hair in. So I'm going ahead and adding the hair in and doing these foundation braids for her. This is the same method I did for all the cornrows, so I didn't want to bore you guys with that redundancy. So I'm doing that and braiding it like halfway down, just because you don't have to braid it all the way down, because we're going to be connecting these braids once we start to do her foundation. So if you watch closely, I'm going to do another one, and then I'm going to move on to her individual braids around the perimeter after I do this next one. So just watch the method and enjoy. And one thing to remember when you're doing these kind of braids is you don't want it to be super tight. You want it to be tense enough where it's not loose. You want it to be, taut and enough tightness so it's not loose, but not so tight that you can't put a crochet hook underneath that cornrow and pull some hair through. So always keep in mind you want it to be tight, but not so tight that you can't pull through. So now I'm going through and doing individual box braids around the front with the same type of pattern. As you can see, I'm following the hairline, so it's mimicking those parts that we had going with the cornrows. Instead, we're just doing box braids. So I'm doing the box braid. I probably box braiding probably about 6 or 7 times down, maybe even more. And then I 2-strand twist the rest of the way. So the reason why I 2-strand twist the rest of the way is because the 2-strand twist is going to be easier to take out when this style has been in her hair for a while versus doing a box braid. So that's just a little hint or a little tip to make sure you don't have as much stress taking your hair down. And then I'm doing the next box plaits, and you can see I'm kind of pulling out her edges to make sure like I'm not pulling that hair into the tension of the braid. I'm just letting it lay with the sides so we can just mold those down when we're done with these braids. So my client, she actually has a little bit of sensitive edges. She had a mishap happen in the past that kind of caused her edges to be weaker. So we're not going to do a lot of tension there. We just decided to shave them down since she normally wears her hair short anyway, so she doesn't have to fight with that tension. And yeah, we just do that box braid just like a regular plait, and then 2-strand twist the rest of the way down. So that's really the process to this. Nothing crazy. It's just, for me, the most important part is using the same consistent parting size so it looks consistent to the cornrows. When you do the crochet, it'll look like individual braids. So I continue to do about 2 rows around her perimeter like that, and I start to do a little bit of diamonds now that I'm moving downwards, because you'll see when I do the cornrows, the box plaits are kind of done on a horizontal angle, or I guess you can say it's not straight vertical, it's not horizontal, it's almost, I don't know verticals and diagonals. Not the one that's straight up and down, not the one that's straight across, but the one that's kind of going across. I guess that is horizontal, not vertical. Anywho, I'm not doing it horizontal or vertical, I'm doing like the opposite, which I think is diagonal. angles when I'm doing these partings. And as you can see, forgive me y'all for that confusion, I'm doing my cornrows connecting the ends of the braids that I did going around her perimeter. So as I'm doing the cornrows, I'm picking up a end of a braid just to make sure those hairs are laying flat, so when we crochet the hair, she won't have any bumps or lumps. And if you can see those partings, they're like a zigzag part. So it kind of mimics the plaits that are in the front of her head. So if the hair was the flip and turn and the one was the blow, it will mimic the same individual pattern that we have in the front. So that is a major key and a plug to do those zigzag parts when you're trying to mimic individual braids, because when you connect each line, as you can see when I'm doing those parts, I'm connecting each line to the previous one, which is leaving me with these little diamond plaits. And these diamond plaits are mimicking box braids. So this is a method that I've been using for at least 3 or 4, if not 5 years to do my crochet. And it makes a huge difference on how the hair lays, first and foremost, because you're not going to have as much bumpiness because it's not as thick throughout. But it also helps the way that the hair is revealed when you are wearing it. It's not like you just see cornrows. It will give you that illusion of box braids. And as I'm braiding it down, you can see I'm pulling the end of the previous cornrow that I did into that cornrow, just so it's not going to be lumpy in one specific point. It's going to gradually, thin out and not stay like super thick at the bottom or anything of that nature. So just be mindful when you're feeding hair in from a previous braid. It's probably better to feed it in towards the middle of your cornrow instead of at the very end, just so all that density isn't trapped at the bottom and then you have this like thick area of hair you have to cover up. So when you pull the hair in, it just is a good method. And I'm using my Sweet Butter Moisturizer on her hair. So if you see this white stuff on her hair, that's what this is. This moisturizer is very thick. It's going to be more of a sealing moisturizer. So it doesn't just disappear when you rub it between your hands. It actually locks onto the hair. So that helps to lock in the moisture. Since she's going to have this protective style in, it's really important that she keeps moisture in her hair. So that's why we're using that Sweet Butter Moisturizer by Lovely's Hair, and that's available through my website. And then we pull through the end of the crochet, the end of the cornrow that we have. And that's just something we're wrapping around her cornrows just to make sure her hair doesn't easily come loose and we don't have to worry about, her pulling out her foundation. So now that that's been done, I cut the little extra end off and it's secure. And now that that's secure, we can start adding the crochet hair in. But before we do that, I'm using Rosemary Stimulating Spray, and that's just gonna help her scalp from itching and getting really irritated. If you ever use this, it gives you a nice cooling sensation and makes your scalp feel like awakened and refreshed. And after we spray that, we're going to use our natural oil. And that natural oil is a blend of jojoba, grapeseed, avocado. Like every oil you could ever need is already mixed up, so you don't got to do it yourself. And we spray that on her scalp just to make sure, or we pour that on her scalp just to make sure we seal in the benefits of that rosemary treatment. And now we start crocheting the hair in. So with crocheting the hair in, this is pretty simple. I've done videos on crochet before, so definitely check out my previous videos on different crochet methods. It's very simple. What you're gonna do is you're gonna pull your hook through the cornrow and then basically go halfway through the loop and pull the end of the cornrow through. So as I keep going, we'll go a little bit closer up so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm pulling my hook through the cornrow and then getting that end through the hoop and then pulling it up to the root. And this is pretty redundant, but I just wanted y'all to see it a couple times. I'm pulling the hook through the cornrow. Take your time to make sure you're not pulling or snagging on any hairs. Open up that hook, pull hair through, and then pull the end of the hair through that hoop or that loop, whatever you want to call it. And make sure it's pretty taut at the beginning of the cornrow so it gives us that illusion of individuals. And same thing right here, going through the loop, opening that loop and pulling the end through, and then tightening at the root. So when we lift it up, it still looks like individuals. And now I'm going to show you how I do the individuals. So same thing, I'm pulling that hook through the box braid, but when I go through the hook, I'm pulling the individual natural braid through, And through that same loop, in the same way, I'm pulling through that crochet braid or that crochet lock. So now they're going to be next to each other. The natural hair pulled through the loop and the crochet lock. And then I'm going to open the lock up a little bit and wrap the hair around. Now, this is a method that I use sometimes, but sometimes not, depending on the lock hair, because it can unravel easily. So I might do this a little bit of the way, and then I'll go through and put my needle through the lock to pull the rest through. So I'm going to do that now. I'm pulling my crochet hook through the middle of the lock, and then I'm stopping at where the hair is. I'm hooking that hair on and then pulling it through. And then once you pull it through, you're like pushing the lock up so it stays thick and tight. And then once you got that end of the hair out, then you can kind of slide the lock down to cover the ends of the hair. So all that to say, that is how we do that method. And I'm going to show you another way where we just pull it through. We're not going to do any of that wrapping around. So I'm going in, and once I do this next one, you'll see exactly the process of how I pull the hair through to make sure that the hair is basically not able to be seen. It's pretty covered. It's pretty, what's the word? Not covered. It's seamless. Like you can't tell where her hair is in the lock. I'm actually going through and adding some hair to her cornrows as well, so you can kind of see how it blends the same way as the individual braids. It gives you the same exact illusion as the individual braids. Those plaits look the same, and you can see how those diagonals end up looking just like the box braid from afar. So that's really the plug with this illusion, is that it continues that flow. Now, as you can see, we're pulling that hook through, pulling the strand of hair through the loop, and now we're pulling the rest of the crochet lock through that. And once we pull that all the way through, then we are going to pull the natural hair through that lock. So watch this part again. I'm gonna take my time and start halfway. I'm not gonna start all the way at the bottom because sometimes that can be harder to get through. So I'm starting halfway through the lock. I'm pushing that crochet hook through, being mindful that I'm staying in the middle and not coming outside of the lock, because if I come outside of the lock and outside of this loop, then I have to worry about her hair showing and being very visible, and I don't want it to be visible, especially because this hair is a different hair color than her natural hair. So once I get as close to the top as I can in that loop near her natural hair, I'm gonna go in and open that hook up once I get through it, and I'm making sure I'm getting as close as I can and not getting too tangled. And then I'm gonna pull her natural hair through, close that hook in, and pull it through the lock. You see how I pulled that down to secure it? And now that I've done that, I'm gonna go through one more time, and I'm going down a little bit further than her hair will come, just to make sure it's locked in there. And then I just open the lock up where it is, the hair is, and pull that through, and kind of just pull that down. Y'all see that? Come on. The illusion is illusioning. Yes. So I'm finishing up the method. I kind of did some laying of one of her edges, or one side of her edges. And as I'm finishing up this hair, y'all are gonna see, I'm just repeating that individual method at the top of the hair. Y'all can see how it's laying really seamlessly. I think she's starting to feel herself. She's getting work done. Now we're about to use my Honey Almond styling foam to lay down her edges. So we use some of that styling foam and rub that around the perimeter. And after we rub that through the perimeter, we make sure that we like smooth it really well. And to lock in that, I'm using my I Create Hold Gel, which is gonna make it lay like glue, y'all. When I tell y'all it's laying, it's going to lay. I'm gonna put that on top, comb that down, and then she's actually gonna go into the dryer for about 15-20 minutes. Actually, I felt like it was 10 minutes because it got too hot for her. She was like, I'm not doing this. This is after she came out the dryer, and I'm going around and cutting the perimeter of her hair. Now, you could do this with trimmers or clippers. I'm using my comb, my shears, because her hair is a little bit longer here, and I think the shears are kind of giving me a crisper line. And as you can see, that hair is almost like glued to her face. So I have to make sure I pull the hair off after I cut it. So I'm doing that part, pulling the hair off, as I cut it, because that gel is making it hold to her skin versus just come off easily. But as y'all can see, it's giving crisp. It's giving crispy. And I'm using the trimmers around the sides to kind of clean up the rest of it and make sure her hair is laying smooth and looking natural, cleaning up any extra bulky hairs. And this is our finished result, you guys. Seamless. Y'all see them individuals. It's giving individual locks. So yeah, I appreciate y'all watching. She enjoyed her hair. She is feeling herself. She's about to go out and live her best life. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe, you share, you comment, you tell a friend to try this method. If you try this method, tag me. But I love you guys. Thank you for watching.